Take it away.
In a world of confusion, welcome to the end of the internet, where people aren't sure if they're an artificial construct or a simulation, or maybe they are a mouse inside the costume of a dragon.
I think I actually
We
saw
have
that on a
reached a
Weird Al
point
video.
of insanity. We have reached a point of insanity, I think. At this point, when discussing matters in the truth movement that is not a truth movement, if you encounter people that say that we're in an artificial construct or a simulation theory or whatever they want to believe, how is it even possible that anything means anything? So what is the point of argument or discussion or investigation, let alone asking people questions to give you evidence when you don't think evidence is real? Welcome to the evil Christian, knowledge scavenger, aka Paula, to this wonderful, what's the day again? Tuesday, November 14, 2017. It is 7:54 west of the Rockies, south of the 33rd parallel. Thank you for joining us. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good. How's everybody else?
I'm doing fine. Having a good day. Yeah.
We're still here.
Teal's here too. She's just being quiet right now, I guess.
Oh, you can't hear me? Hello?
No, you were muted. You were muted.
We hear you now.
I make you quiet.
Hold
If
on,
there
my
is such thing
volume
as
might
hearing,
be
though,
low.
I don't know if there's such thing as hearing.
It's hard to believe anything.
You hurt my artificial feelings.
For every time the solipsism mouse hears an artificial thought, he will donate artificial money to that person, $10 a month.
Pretty.
It's like artificial inception. I mean, that's why we have doomed in the title, is because you can have realities in the artificial construct that are real, but some are fake, but everything is fake before 400 years ago. But stuff that happens right now is real, but it's all a simulation, because what is real? How do you define real, as Morpheus said?
Well, first, can you define? You have to define before we can move on, though.
This is what's wrong. Their definition is wrong. They just don't get what's going on right now. Everything is artificial because it's not real. It's a lie. Everything's a lie right now. That's exactly what's going on. You can call it artificial if you want, because everything is the opposite of what it should be.
What's a lie?
But I want to know, like, how can somebody mention objective evidence in the same conversation as talking about, artificial, this reality being artificial? I don't get that. If you're dropping absolutes, then you are dropping objective. It's almost as if that person didn't understand the meaning of objective.
Well, yeah, it's like the phrase like military intelligence, they use as a classic oxymoron. It's like artificial reality, truth in a simulation. I mean, it makes no sense to me. I mean, and what world am I in right now when this makes sense to people? I don't get it.
Well, it is an artificial world. Everything's told to you.
Well, the philosophical definition of objective is fact outside of the mind. So, I mean, that's paraphrased, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And so how can you claim that objective evidence is when everybody can see something and verify it for themselves? No, that's not objective. Objective means that it's outside of the way that he said that, and then he's talking about an artificial reality. Well, you can't have that. Either there's objective facts and absolute truths, or there's not. If there's an artificial reality, then there's not objective.
That's another oxymoron.
facts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
artificial. I was just going to say that artificial reality. It's the whole simulation theory is nonsensical, but it allows this Mandela effect thing, because anything goes if it's artificial. You can make up whatever you want, but then if that's true, there's no such thing as true.
Oh yeah, no.
true.
I made you guys all up. You're all different personas of me. You're voicing in my head. We're having a very well-meaning conversation. We're
No,
working
you
this
don't.
out. We're gonna figure this out.
Look, I'm not really here.
You're me if I really wanted a goatee.
That's what people actually believe about God. They're all the same, even though they have conflicting attributes. You know, one God has a son, the other does not, and so forth. And they're all the same somehow. If you worship one, you worship all of them. It's just like we're all the one same person. And if you can make up whatever you want.
Right,
Except
right. It doesn't-
Christianity.
I want to be a
It
pirate.
doesn't matter if there's two conflicting answers to something. They're both true.
No, that's a glitch in the matrix.
Can't be one or the other. They're both true.
No, because that's a false binary. There's no such thing as a true binary. Oh, man. I did a video called epistemology once. I know people laugh at that word, but it means how you know what you know. And that's a question I've been trying to present, some sort of answer to for, I don't know, a year, of all sorts of people I like, saying that they're going to go search for the truth. But two things happen. One, if you say you find it, you're egotistical if you're a Christian, because you can't say you have the truth. That's egotistical. So we're only allowed to search, we're not allowed to find it. But the other thing is just that they have no idea how to go about finding truth. It's like setting out on the ocean in a little rowboat, without the oars, without a sail, without a compass or a rudder, and expecting to find something. I mean, maybe you'll get found by sharks, but you're not going to find anything you set out to find.
But they look at the non-facts of a non-real existence.
Yeah, and some are true and some aren't. Anything that's Bible age is automatically false. Any artifacts are automatically false. But what I can see in somebody's camera on the internet, that's got to be true because I saw it. I just no rhyme or reason to this.
I don't understand how they can seek truth in an artificial world. That doesn't make any sense. What is there to find if everything you're looking for isn't real?
Yeah, then you're just creating it moment by moment. So just stop worrying and go for it.
Just keep smoking what you like, and you're good.
Do they even think like their own thoughts are real?
Some people will tell you they don't know, like Zen Buddhists. They're like, yeah, you do make up your reality as you go along. We do create reality with our thoughts. I mean, people say this in all seriousness.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, then how come we're still like dying and there's still evil in the world? I mean, if we make our own reality, then I wouldn't be here. I would be in a heavenly place right now.
Well,
I certainly wouldn't be here.
We just proved them right, I think, because it's an artificial reality. We have artificial money. We have artificial medicine. We have artificial everything. And again, you can tell anybody you want. Ask your grandpappy to name all the autistic people he knew. He would say, what? What's autistic? Okay? And just like everything going on today that's wrong, if you think it magically came out of the sea or just flew out of the sky, you're dreaming. Okay, well, actually it did fly out of the sky, only it was put there by man. So some evil-doing individuals are absolutely polluting and poisoning every damn thing and artificially giving us fake money, fake monopoly money to play with, fake reality, fake every type of information you want on the internet. So you got to tread lightly.
That's actually correct, and that's why we need the only truth that exists, which is the word itself, and there is no other truth. That's why the Bible says, you are living in this world, but you are not of this world. I agree that this world is a satanic deception. Actually, what does Rand Campbell call it? A satanic ritual. I 100% agree with that. That's why I take my time into worrying about God's creation, and trying to focus on that's why God says he is clearly seen in his creation. So obviously that's what that's what I feel I'm supposed to focus on. That's why I do appreciate this creation. But what the problem is this goes back to Einstein. This is nothing more than a new version of relativity. Period. End of story. That's what this is relativity. So we have an artificial scientist, again, Agave is correct, not a real scientist 100 years ago coming up with relativity, which is exactly what this is. So guess what? It turns out this is about, again, this is going to insult people, it's about staying high. People love looking and searching for the truth because they get this high, whether it's this new psyop or this idea or this and that, because it feels much better than finding the truth. Because once you find the truth, there's no more endorphins and adrenaline of finding it. It's over with.
Well, and not only that, but once they found the truth of Jesus Christ, they have to admit that they're nothing apart from him. And that's the problem, because they're so full of pride that they don't want to acknowledge that they need Christ.
No, they're of this world. Like we just said, of this world is exactly a description of just about everybody.
And this is true in the churches too. People do what I call spiritual thrill seeking. They go to church to get the high, and then it's gone, and they got to go back next week and get it filled up again and
pay.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
go karting. It's more fun.
But yeah, it's just crazy what passes for intellectualism these days, and people are all running around like a snipe hunt looking for truth. You know, they have no idea what they're looking for, what it looks like, how to recognize it, but they're going to find it. But boy, you better not say you found it, or just, you know, you're being egotistical, like I said earlier. It's just crazy.
Well, my thing is, like, I don't know, I just lost my thought. It'll come back to me.
All right. And it comes back to me in the middle of the night. That's when stuff comes back to me.
You never had a thought. It was just a constructed, false constructed thought. You thought you had a thought, and you thought you forgot a thought, but you never had a thought to forget in the first place, which is nice.
Yeah, you're slowly being corrupted.
The code needs reloaded.
Yeah, it's a buffer.
Hey, whatever they're doing is working, though, to everybody, because everyone I know, they have no memory. They just are focused on their cell phone. It's just ridiculous right now. It's Zombie Nation 100% coming true. Didn't even think it was possible, but here we are.
Well, I would say mine's more of having to deal with little Zachary and everyday issues that's just thousands of thoughts going in my head at once. But anyways, I was going to say, the searching doesn't end, though, when you find Christ, because then you grow spiritually. So you still have the excitement and the thrill of growing and learning. It's not as if you stop learning at that point. You actually have spiritual growth to look forward to.
100% agree, 1,000% agree. That's what I'm saying, is that once you find out that the Bible is true, though, you no longer have this mysticism high or looking for the, maybe it's really this God, or maybe, maybe it's these Egyptian pyramids, and actually we're in this other realm that's hidden before us, and it's going to be like we're all floating. Like that's what these mystical chakra, sacred geometry cults are doing. This is nothing different than the average New Age religion. It's searching for their BS, while of course using it to destroy the Bible. No, the Bible's not true. It's going to be much more like this, and it's anything but Christianity, like Paula says.
Yeah,
well, people that have read the Bible and people that haven't read the Bible are all in the same boat too, because when they find the truth and then they don't have somebody on Sunday telling them to be ashamed of what they're thinking about a certain topic or so forth, when they're actually correct and being led astray, these are the type of things that frustrate people about the Bible. So finding people that actually can tell you with an open mind what's going on, you know what I mean? And for you also to have an open mind, not to close any doors right away. Just let everything flow through the information, and then you'll figure it out as you go along. Don't get too emotional about the whole darn thing. Everybody's getting so wrapped up at this point that, you're so invested in your own belief, so to speak, or your own religion. Thanks, Paula, for today's hangout. The death description and definition needs to be defined. So,
well, Pillbox, maybe it's that they are getting a high off of their own vain imaginations. And that's why they don't want to turn to Scripture, because Scripture takes that away. It's no longer about your vain imaginations. It's about God's truth.
Well, that's the thing. It goes back to everybody has faith. There's no necessary break between either believing or knowing. Everybody believes. Nobody really knows something, but we have probabilities. And I think, after so many decades, I'm fairly certain to say that I found something that's consistent, it works, and it's as real as anything is going to get, and that's the Bible and Jesus rising from the dead. And that's why we have some sort of way to actually find truth and not just endlessly search for it. Buddy Jibby's in the chat. Also say shout out to Kathleen, Victoria. Let's see, who else did I see? Pete Van Veen, Teddy. Let's see, who else? I think I said, yeah, I said Victoria.
Nobody gives two craps about jibbity jibbity dive jibbity.
And someone called Ian.
The chat right now.
He raised a question though about demons walking around right next to us. If we can't see in these bodies, we can see outside of them. So what is preventing this? Well, we already know there are that are too far away, and we know that there are things that are outside the visible spectrum that are nonetheless detectable. When it comes to the spiritual realm, we all agree there's a spiritual realm, but I don't see how any of that jives with the simulation theory. I mean, it's just a different frequency, like people like to say. We do. Oh, you're asking why we can't see them. I don't know why we can't see them, but sometimes God has, in the Bible, has said, you know, open this person's eyes so they can see the angelic beings and they can see them. So evidently, there's a reason. I mean, they're there. We just can't always see them.
It's a private
I don't know
channel.
why.
It would disturb your whole life.
Well, this well, even worse. This goes back to the very first pages of the Bible. Look what Eve and Adam were tempted with. More. This isn't enough. It's never enough, and that's exactly what this is. Nothing's changed in 7,000 years.
Okay, we got more questions in the chat. I might, deal with them while they're there because things roll off and then I can't roll back and see them for some reason sometimes. Anyway, in the Eclipse video, we were playing on ponchos during totality. We could see stuff in the sky. We could see them or the things in the sky. They became visible at totality. Well, part of the issue we're just kind of watching, and I told you I'm not going to type over there anymore. But part of the reason, the issue is optics. I learned about photography and optics growing up with the Apprentice model. My dad was running the newspaper and we all learned photography. So I learned it that way. And I learned it in college with not theoretical physics. It's the physics that is real and scientific, and you do experiments and you make calculations and you track the path of light. So I kind of can speak about optics a little bit and lenses. And as it was even pointed out in the chat there, it was taken on a cell phone. And so you're going to get artifacts, you're going to get lens flares. And yes, there were anomalies in the picture that you could kind of barely see that didn't add up to those things. But I do know a lens flare when I see them. But be careful of what you see on a camera, especially a cell phone camera, because they can tell you things that aren't there. But at the same time, depending on how they move, like I think you were pointing out, I was talking about the one with the cell phone. If there's another one, I might not have seen that one, but with the shadows and all that stuff, I don't remember which camera that was on.
Well, either way, we're talking about photos taken, not seeing things in real life, and that's another gap that people are having a problem with. Actually, this is Teal Summers has brought this up for the past few months, that actually photography is not a good source of evidence. And I'm a photographer. I've taken 30,000 pictures, and guess what? She's right. It's not a good source of evidence.
It's a weak
that's the reality.
form. Yeah.
Right.
It's a good little piece to add to, all the other evidences, but it's a weak form of evidence because it can be altered.
No, but look at the picture stuff today. 10 zillion megapixels and all that doesn't matter when you stick it through that little fishy lens. Well, if you grab yourself an 80s camera with a 35 millimeter flat lens, you'd have 10 times better success getting a more accurate picture. So right away, you can prove that the optics themselves are part of this illusion, so to speak, which is, again, part of the dome problem I think people are having with sun, moon, and everything else, and parabolics and optics and parabolics. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that you can't analyze unless you have a full-scale model to stand inside and shine your light around.
Right, that's why I did all those things with lenses and double concave lenses and stuff. But I see the point on, I've done, we've all used cameras before, and we know what the deal is with that. But one thing I didn't see an answer to that I was hoping somebody would say is whether they could see exactly the same things without the camera with just the naked eye. And now, yes, the point taken that a camera can collect more light, but it doesn't always than the human eye is. You have to do a time lapse in order to get more light than the human eye, because we're doing I forget what the equivalent f-stop and exposure time is on the human eye, but it's not very long. And of course, it's basically like a brownie camera lens. It's an infinity lens in the human eye, and a pinhole lens is what I was looking for. But as far as whether it takes in more light or not than the human eye, that's kind of depends on what the settings are. But here again, I didn't see everything on the video, and looking on, my screen, I don't have the best vision. I couldn't really see the tiny dot very well, but I could see the little blue crescent and the lens flares and things. So some parts of that, at least, I can dismiss with optics, and some parts I wasn't sure about. And the shadow things, I saw somebody talk about, with the multiple shadows of the crescent of the eclipse on the ground, or on the side of a wall that somebody showed. That's really fascinating too. And the one I saw, like a month ago, explained that this was an art technique actually, where they would put a pinhole in a wall of an empty room and let the outside light come in, and it would basically project the outside as a picture on the wall, and then they would just trace it. So this is a real optical thing that people know about, but it's not mysterious really, unless the physics of light are mysterious, which tell most people they are. But as far as the footage goes, I'd really like to see, I know it's a hard thing to duplicate, but I'd really like to see people seeing exactly with their eyes what they're seeing on the camera, and calculate what the difference is in exposure time and f-stop. That would be a proper scientific comparison, I think.
This is also the source of all the ghost pictures we've been given for the last 30 years on shows like Sightings and Sci-Fi Networks. And look at these pictures of this ghost. They didn't see it in real life, but yeah, when you get a lens flare and there's dust particles really close or something like that, oh my goodness, look at these anomalies. Right, your camera picked it up. It doesn't, and you're looking at fuzz and you're looking at glare. Oh, that's a ghost, and it's the same exact thing. We're hunting ghosts and searching for needles and needle stacks.
Yeah, it's hard to say with just optics what you're seeing at all, because I've been talking to like Dr. Zach, going back and forth on problems with triangulating the sun. It's pretty much impossible, because whether you're using your eye or a camera or how you look at anything up in the sky, we're dealing with lenses and distortions, and they're not always uniform, and they're not always consistent from one day to the next, 1 minute to the next. The conditions can change, and the light can bounce all over the place. So optically, it's really only one piece of the puzzle, and we need actual physical evidence if we're ever really going to say what something's made of or whether it's really there. You have to have more than just light, even from your eye, because you really can't tell anything but where it appears to be. You really can't tell what it's made of or where it actually is or whether it's real, because it's so distorted. We're inside the underside of a double concave lens looking at different angles through it, and it's just so many variables. I wouldn't know how to solve that problem.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget too, if you've ever had a conversation with any camera people that are pretty into it, and in my case with serious professionals, those uppity type people you wouldn't like to meet, these guys are so into this cameras and so forth. It's like gun owners and stuff. When you're just into guns, it's like you can identify this gun from that gun. But when you're really into it, these guys get into the brands, the models, the difference, the nuances of each camera. I mean, these guys will talk for hours about the minutest little things, that really wouldn't matter to anyone, the average layman. But again, every camera is different, different combinations of lenses and cameras, different brands with different cameras. And like you said, you can get night vision on 12 different cameras, go home and test them all, and you'll get 12 different pictures. So everybody's got their proprietary secrets in their companies about how they do their stuff and so forth. And you get 12 different results. Not to say that everything is dismissed immediately as a camera flare or whatever, but a good, huge portion of them I would attribute to something being amiss.
I know just before the eclipse, I was looking for tips on how to properly record it and take pictures of it. And the professionals, my brother being a professional photographer too, he sent me some links to things, and they're like, I plan to take like 6 cameras, all different kinds, different lenses, different speeds, different this, different that, different tripods. And I expect to take like, 3 extra batteries for each camera because I expect to take thousands of pictures, you know, and in the space of a few hours, you know, it's like, that's how you do optics. You have to take lots of bracketing, they call it, where you go on either side of an exposure range or a speed range, and different zoom levels and focuses. And it's like really technical and complicated if you want to do it right with optics. And so it's really hard for us.
Indoors, outdoors, all kinds of, there's so many variables too. I mean, again, I told you who a guy I used to live with owned a television company in Toronto, and the house he stayed in, I was watching for him. You know, you'd have guys staying over for a couple of days when they are laid over from their flight or whatever, and these guys would drag in heap loads of camera equipment and huge cases full and traveling cases and stuff. And I'm like, you know, the guy would have the thing laying around, and I would pick it up and take a look at it and ask him a few questions, and then he'd tell me it's worth $150,000, and I'd put it back down real carefully. And then, you know, the guy's like, well, we're filming this or that, or sometimes it's sharks, sometimes it's poker stars, sometimes it's outdoor things in the Arctic, sometimes it's whatever. So there's different equipment for everything, which will give you different results with everything. I mean, there's just variables upon variables. You're looking through a device. That's the bottom line. What I'm bringing up in my mind now, though, which makes me laugh, is when somebody like Galileo whipped out a 3 times telescope out in the whatever hundreds and told everybody that this existed and things were spinning around up there. And now you got yourself you know, the Nikon is a good example of that new zooming capability, or anything. You know, some people have pretty good cameras and big lenses that are even more zoomable than that look at Saturn and so forth, would still never come to the conclusion that Galileo came to. I don't understand.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing when you think about allegedly what the story goes. That's all we know, but the story goes what they were using, and it's like, are you kidding me? They saw that.
It's like your Mickey Mouse or Barbie telescope is probably a 10 times, and that thing was 3, and it was probably made with some molten glass that they had to do like 100 different times to try and get one piece of glass to look like it was clear enough to actually polish it for 66 weeks before it was even clear enough to look through. I mean, come on. You know.
Let me get to something in the chat about objectivity. We kind of started off on that, and Jibby, who was asking, wasn't here when we did that, but I'll see if I can give my perspective anyway on that. The thing about objective and proof and subjective and just preference, the thing is on one level is if everything is a matrix, you know, an artificial construct, a simulation, then nothing, literally nothing is real, and nothing can be proved, and nothing matters. There is no pursuit of truth because, and this is how the Mandela effect would work if it's artificial. Yeah, sure, I can see that happening because nothing matters. Nothing's real. It can change in 5 seconds. So if you have that paradigm, then the search for truth is actually quite futile because as soon as you take a step, the whole scene can change. It's like in the Matrix where they changed a doorway into a brick wall all of a sudden. You can't find truth if they don't want you to, if they're malevolent and they're running a simulation and we're in it. That's the problem with simulation theory, is it makes everything pointless. But if it's real, because and this is the way I look at it, is this is our reality. We're part of whatever this is, therefore it's real to us. Then you have to decide what are the rules. How, you know, can they be bent or broken like in the Matrix? And I think as a Christian, you know, that's the perspective I'm coming from. It's as good as any other perspective, and I defy anyone to say it's not. And I don't think anybody here is, even in the chat. But what I'm saying is that we know what miracles are. They are violations of the norm by definition. And so, yes, they can be bent or broken, but not by us necessarily is the thing. It's by the programmer, quote unquote, which is God, who made this reality and us as a part of it. And he set up the rules. And so when it comes to whether something's objective or not, it matters whether you even think that's possible, first of all. And secondly, whether you have a method that's outside of yourself that everyone can apply, and if they apply it consistently, and that's about the only way you're going to ever define something objective. So it depends on a lot of variables, what a person's worldview is, whether they think reality is even real as far as anybody normally defines it, and then how you expect to judge reality, how you interpret it, and whether you're consistent on top of all that. So it depends on who you ask, really. And if people are coming from two different perspectives, one believes it's all a simulation and that truth is just whatever it is inside of you, which is called solipsism. That's the general term for making up your own truth. If you're talking to a person like that, and you're like me, for example, and a person who believes in objective reality that can be discovered, those two people will never come to agreement, and they will talk past each other forever. And I think that's all I can really say about that.
This also proves that God has a wonderful sense of humor, because these people that came up with this solipsism, you know, like I said earlier, I could just say, well, it's actually called slopsism. Prove me wrong. And that just shows that, you know, people just love, you know, basically writing their own tombstone with their satanic ideologies. I mean, literally, if I said to myself, no, it's actually called slopsism, you couldn't tell me I'm wrong.
Does this mean all the beautiful things I've created in the world aren't real?
Depends on who you ask. They're real to you.
They're sloppy. They're sloppy.
Well, I sold them, so does that mean I sold nothing?
But you got game tokens in return, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's a video game.
Yeah, right. It's fake money, right?
Yeah, I really didn't want to make all those things either. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. Is if in solipsism, if a person believes that, then they're right and everyone else is wrong. Not only is it the narrow belief system in the world, it's also ironic or hypocritical, however you want to take it, that to say that anyone is wrong. I mean, by definition, everyone else must be wrong because it's only what your truth is. But at the same time, they can't be wrong because everyone has their own truth. So to them, it is true. It's just, it'll twist your mind and nuts.
Ask them why there's so many starving people laying around the desert in Africa and so forth, and what their artificial construct is, and exactly how they develop their mindset to want to be there.
They're just slowly degrading. You know, they had the worst corruption when the divide. You know, it just happened.
Well, that's the reality they wanted to be in, so that's where they are, right? You know, I mean, this is the kind of ridiculousness. You see, these people are busy eating Cheetos on the couch. This is the problem. They've never been hungry for even 1 hour, which means they've never suffered for 1 second, and they've never had a problem in their life. You know, it's a millennial snowflake you're dealing with in most cases, or somebody who's completely delusional and into space or science.
I mean, not only that, this is the only one that doesn't require a beginning, because the beginning is something else.
It's a bang.
Yeah, but there is no beginning. There's no sense in it for there to be a beginning. It's just is.
And what would the purpose be? Exactly.
Yeah,
it's a roundabout. It's an
Ouroboros
Ouroboros
that has no purpose. There is no reason or beginning, or an end, or anything else.
Well, I want to change my reality right now. I feel like being a lobster fisherman, so I gotta go, guys. See you later.
Oh, I'll see
this
you.
Is the same satanic excuses that any pseudoscience gives you. This is exactly the same belief system of internet heroes that, you know, saw Star Wars and no space is real. They'll tell you, no, space is actually very hot and cold. You know, so we got all those problems. Okay, it's hot and cold. Okay, that covers everything. And of course, evolution. You know, if the cats make non-cats, it's evolution. If the cats all die, it's evolution. And of course, the cats make just kitties, it's still evolution. So.
Hey, I gotta throw a bone out to Ephesians 6:12 channel. Man, listen, I haven't laughed in a little while. You know, pretty good at any videos, but this guy threw something out the other day there. I don't know what it was, but I had a really good chuckle and a laugh at it. It was. You should have seen some of the comparison pictures that they were making on there. He was like, you know, this, you know, just go watch it. I'm not even going to ruin it for you. Go check it out. It's well worth watching. It's very entertaining as far as, you know, making fun of this nonsensical Big Bang. You came from a monkey, and everything else they're doing. NASA, science, space, every damn thing about it is wrong. Even the shit like that moon buggy and stuff. You know, it's like, look at this piece of garbage. Minus 230 degrees, no problem. Fire it up. You know what I mean? Everything about that lunar lander and all that stuff, you know, minus 200, plus 200, whatever, no problem. Fire it up. You know what I mean? My Subaru sucks. Can't work at all here on Earth. Nope, no problem.
Well, I mean, there's so many similarities between the monkeys and the humans, though. I mean, look at your picture. It's smoking, just like I just got through doing.
Hey, there's no question that there's a heck of a resemblance between humans and monkeys as far as behavior, for sure. And even in some cases, some people have a lot of look to them. I don't know whether this is a real evil doing, whether it's just a matter of we got lots of different individuals and we're lucky that we speak. But I talked to somebody the other day who, again, brought up the classic thing for me, the evolution thing. I couldn't believe somebody was really going to say this to me, because I was just waiting for someone to pop that out. Oh yeah, evolution and monkey. I said, so what happened? Why is there still monkeys, and why is there people, and where's the middle monkeys, the ones that are like just learning to talk and so forth? Like, shouldn't there be something in the middle? And that the silence was deafening.
Not only that, our cousin is the banana.
Yeah, it's too funny, man.
Yeah, because we are 55% related to them.
That's why we're half bananas.
Yes, we're all half bananas. What's really freaking funny about that, though, is that we're 55% related to everything, apparently.
Yeah,
like
I'm not so
the
sure
the building blocks for life itself. We all have about 50 to 55% relation to all of those. And I find that hilarious that they specifically point out bananas.
Here's what I know. You know, Hollywood tells us a lot of answers, okay, right? We know that.
Yep.
A lot of the truth. Okay. So this Planet of the Apes has got to get you thinking, first of all. Then you got to consider, number two, that maybe these suckers being in control of being able to modify us and manipulate our DNA and genes and so forth over time, again, have been not only dumbing us down, somehow, you know, manipulating us to make us like monkeys. When you look at the warring of people and you watch a Natural Geographic on monkey troops going after each other, it's just same thing. I mean, you're watching a protest down on the main street, Montreal, when you see these two groups go after each other. So there's something to be said about, you know, what they've taken that as an example and said, look, this is what we need to create. You know what I mean? We got to get everybody battling like this. These monkeys don't like these monkeys. They'll fight each other to the death. Even though these monkeys are the same as these monkeys, they have different troops and they will also fight each other to the death. So, you know, go ahead.
I want to know if hating a certain skin color makes somebody racist. Does me hating bananas make me a fruitist?
It just might. It just might.
Hey, the skin color thing is so funny at this point because again, look, we're not that old, okay? And when you consider, even you could easily have 5 generations back the blackest black man in your family, and easily today never know that, just because you never had another black person marry into the family since then. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you're white as can be. You'd never know. You'd literally never know. You'd wash it out, so to speak, but not out of the bloodline. It would be available to see in the DNA thing. This is why this is such a big push with this DNA, Ancestry.com, DNA tree, whatever the hell they're calling this nonsense. Every time it comes on TV, my hair, my 4 hairs I have left stand up.
And you broke the internet.
Oh, I can break this.
Well,
for sure.
I think a lot of animals have those similarities. Like, I mean, ant colonies fight each other. Packs of dogs fight each other. I mean, I understand there's lots of similarities, but I don't think that necessarily means that there is a genetic implants or is evidence for it. But that's just my
not that
theory,
high, but psychologically, especially, they've knocked us down an animal level, as opposed to the divine humans we're supposed to be. Whereas you wouldn't care about the value of anything. If somebody needed something to eat and you had a handful of food, you just wouldn't question it. You'd just pass it over, you know. But these days we don't do that. We're like, oh, if I can't sell this food, I'm just going to throw it in the garbage, you know.
Right. I'm just sorry, looking at stuff in chat. It's like the question keeps coming around about that they, you know, someone is controlling our reality and all, but it's like, well, yeah, but the problem is that how do you even know that if it's artificial? How do you know anything at all if we're as artificial as our construct? You know, we're part of the same stuff. And if it's all artificial, then how do we truly know anything? How do we know there are powers that be that are causing bad things to happen? How do we know anything we see with our eyes? That's the root of the problem with that kind of an approach, I think.
Yeah. Well, and JP's comment They know what is making this what we are, all that stuff, and knowing that gives them leverage over us.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about the elite right there, and I would agree that they do know. I think they do know a lot more about the patterns that God has used within Scripture than a lot of even Christians today. I do think they know stuff like that, and I think that's why they know that they're in the end times and their time is short. So
yeah, the people
I
that
would
affect
agree with
us,
that.
the people that affect us are right above us. It's not, we're not dealing with the highest level. We're only dealing with the other humans that are manipulated, and they're controlling us. You see, this is the problem people are having, is associating this ladder of chain of command that's very long too. So the double-crossed people above that still control us are double-crossed themselves, whether they like to believe it or not. They'll never figure that out until the end, and they're unfortunately on the dirty end of the stick. And, you know, we're down here at the bottom where we're supposed to be. And don't be sad to be down near the bottom, because if you're down near the bottom, then you're doing something right, because you're not a dirty, you know, greedy person in life trying to go out and take advantage of everything to get ahead, to scrape and scrounge and get up this ladder in the snakes and ladders game.
I would agree with that, Jibby, but I would also say that a lot of the elite are, and I'm sure you would agree with this, are elitist because they basically inherited their social economical status. And I believe that this has been this way for centuries. And so they have learned how to pretty much brainwash and control the cattle, so to speak.
Well, they don't even
So
know
it's
they don't
not.
even know they're doing it, because they are bred from the day they were born into the system that they're in and into the elite system. They're told certain things all the way along. It's not like you just surprised them at 16 years old and said, "Here, look, you're actually part of a family that's going to rule the world." You know, you program them right from the day they were born to come up. They don't go to war, though. You know, like, you know, these politicians and people, none of them have anything to do with the games they play. We play the game, they sit back and watch, and even their own children, who are going to be the next generation of rulers, if you want to call them that, or controllers, don't even realize that they're victims.
Right. Yeah.
Well, then on the search for the creator, go ahead, Paula.
Well, I was just going to say, and Jesus said that when people asked him, you know, his disciples asked him about the end times, the first thing he says is, don't be deceived. I mean, there's a reason he said that. There's layers and layers of this going on. And that's why, you know, we have people going, well, reality is this, reality is that. If we've been deceived on purpose, and the question everybody has to ask, and it's only answerable by faith, not by proof, is how do you determine what's true? And if you have a method that's consistent and objective, you might have a chance. You know, I can't even guarantee that, but I can say, at least I recognize that everybody has faith. And I say, look, I picked a method that I think is going to lead me to the truth, and someone else may differ. But the problem is when those someone else's will say that my method must be wrong, even though they can't say whether anything's true or not. That's what bugs me.
Right.
Yeah.
You also have to have a standard of truth, though. You also have to have the ability to comprehend there can only be one truth, or there's no such thing as truth. Like if I take a picture of my pet dragon eating a mouse, I can say, look, I have a picture here. You have two options to believe. Either this is a mouse wearing a dragon costume, or it's a dragon eating a mouse. It can't be both. And that's the biggest problem they have, is they don't understand, or they are afraid that there's one truth, because then it'll slow them down and the high's over. Like, I really think it's about just being high and not finding it. But then realizing that if there's one truth also, and putting two and two together, like I say, logic leads to truth. All truth leads to Jesus Christ, the Bible, the word, whatever you want to use. It's got to start somewhere. And if God is real and cared about his creation, he would leave something as a message for the people that aren't afraid of truth.
Yep.
Yep. The language, translation, everything, though, again, with this new age people and so forth, I have no problem leaning into the realm of interdimensional Jesus. I have no problem of leaning into the realm of, you know, things that are depicted from the past, you know, what we call UFOs and all this stuff. Some of these people are so far on that end of the stick that this is, you know, everybody's been there. We've all been through the Ancient Aliens and everything else whenever that first came on TV in the 90s, or I don't know when. But the point is, at some point, if you're looking down that trail and you're open-minded into the other subjects, the truth will eventually make itself apparent, because it's a dead end when you follow that that alien UFO situation and so forth. This whole thing is a dead end until you find out that, hey, look, this is all written down in this book over here. It's just that you didn't understand the way it was written. You see, unfortunately, again, you get the person pictures the church with the steeple immediately and the collection plate as soon as you say church, and they don't remember one thing other than a couple of hymns that they sung in church or what have you. So it was never ever given to them. The minute somebody hands it over and says, no, that's not what it's about, watch this, and throws a few bones their way, then they ding-a-ling-a-ling, they go off in their head. At least then they're a little more open-minded, especially if you're not one of those people that's like, you're going to do this or that, you're going to die, you're going to go to hell if you don't do this or that. Don't start there, for God's sakes. Get them over the little hump first, and then they'll start rolling down the hill,
Right. Yeah, just this morning, I was looking at a site that claimed, I'm always looking something keyword with Bible in it, and somebody was saying, oh, yeah, this is how you interpret the Bible. These 7 seals, we were going over Revelation at Flat Out Elected. These 7 seals are the 7 chakras. And I'm, whoa, wait a minute. No. Because, first of all, the Bible's our book, not your book, and we say what it means, and the Bible itself says what it means. And it's written as matter-of-fact historical or even apocalyptic literature. It has nothing, no hint, no description of chakras or kundalini or third eye or any of that stuff. So if somebody wants to believe that, that's fine, but it's not what the Bible says.
Were they young?
What's that?
Were they young? Was it a young person?
I don't know who it was. I just briefly looked at a video, and I don't think it was them speaking, so I don't know.
That sounds like somebody making a nice connection because of sevens, immediately in their head and thinking, okay, I saw this piece of important ancient information and it must go with that. Okay, that's a good start because you're sticking things together. But here, now I'll whip out my notepad for you. I got a list of at least 100 things with 7 days of the week. So, we can go all day. I got a huge list. We've all been through this too. So again, to try and, associate something to something, now you got to bring into their vocabulary the counterfeiter and say, look, over time, if you had 6,000 years of time to fool around and mess with people and their cultures and their beliefs and their gods and so forth, and telling them when the sun is going to go black and everything else, you can easily give them every story you want to give them, chakras and so forth included, meditation, Hindu gods and everything else. Again, these are all, counterfeits. You can't. That's the only word to give it. Is a really good counterfeit, a really believable counterfeit of the time, of that time. And today we're doing the exact same thing, only it's in a future mode. We're in the microwave oven time. The microwave oven's magic. Look, you put it in there, it comes out hot, amazing. If you had that thing back in the day, you would have been the man. You would have been ruling the world with a microwave oven.
Right, but I think there's still confusion or miscommunication on the concept as far as what I'm seeing in the chat about the fundamental problem being that if nothing is knowable, essentially, because it's an artificial construct, then nothing is knowable. I mean, truth cannot be found. And all of this effort at discovering creation is made into a exercise in futility, whereas if you believe that this is our reality, and in the Bible is a very sensible book compared especially to the other religious writings. I mean, it makes sense of things, and there's a beginning, and it went bad, and it's going to be it's been redeemed, it'll be finished up here pretty soon, and then everything will be right again. This is as sensible and straightforward, Occam's razor kind of a worldview as any. And yet people will say that this must be wrong, even though it's so sensible. And then they will say, well, we got to use the scientific method to determine truth. But it's the Bible and it's science. It's, God says, come, let us reason together, which prompted an awful lot of scientific investigation in the past. It was because of the Bible that people said, we can figure out how God did stuff to a degree because it's sensible, because God is a God of order and logic. And that he does things, he creates, this is, as it says in Romans, that this realm we're in is evidence of the creator, and that people have no excuse not to believe in God because look at the creation, it's designed. So I don't understand how people can say and I'm talking about people over years and years in all sorts of different places, saying that the Bible must not be true, or it's just one story, and they would just believe that it was seeded by aliens, you know, the panspermia theory, or the endless regression theory, or the Big Bang magic, or whatever they want to believe, that they think that makes more sense. And I'm like, well, how do you determine what makes more sense if everything's artificial and truth or truth is within you and not objective? Or, you know, on 1,000 other ideas I've heard, anything but the Bible. It's like, I don't understand how logically those two things can be in the same sentence. Those two ideas can be in the same mind, that we're in an artificial construct and you can find truth. I just don't get that.
They never read it, first of all. That's the first problem, because you just said, like, they would describe it as a story. And I'd say, well, if you've ever read this book, you'd read it from front to back, and not 2 pages make sense from one to another when you go through this thing the first time. There's no question about that. You'll read this and go, what the heck did I just read? Okay, so there's no story involved here. This isn't a Little Red Riding Hood, once upon a time, and then the end. There is no story there. There's 66 books in there with 66 different topics, and covering every darn thing up and down the block. And, you know, even when you were mentioning the 7 trumpets and all that, none of that's in chronological order. You know, I mean, none of this is in order of that it's written. You can't count on that. Anybody wise that tells you to read it would never tell you to take it at face value, start at A and go to Z and expect it to make sense. There's just not going to happen. You have to be led to it. And I know that sounds kooky too, but even people who have what they call faith, and I'll put that in quotations, you know what I mean? These are the same people that get a flu shot, have life insurance, all kinds of darn things in this life that, you know, they count on nothing. And when you bring it up, for example, like, oh, you hurt yourself or whatever, and they're like, yeah, I'm rushing off down to the clinic, and you know, to see if they can fix my snivelly nose, got a runny nose, and it's like, well, doesn't it say something here about healing in the Bible? Like, did you guys try this first before you get onto that? You know, again, all the things that are in this book that they claim to believe, they don't believe. So we don't practice, especially this new age, this new time. None of it is even remotely believed or practiced, you know, because as soon as you mention to somebody, oh, you can heal them in the name of Jesus, they just,
right.
You know, they give you this. I say, well, if you don't believe it, how the heck is it ever going to happen? You know, that's a funny thing in itself.
But it's out of the same mouth. I've just noticed that anytime I come across these viewpoints, they're also in the same breath, usually the same conversation. They're going to say, well, how can the Bible be this? And how could the Bible be that? And they just got done saying, how could anything be anything? So wait a minute, you're telling me nothing can be anything. And now you're asking me how the Bible can be anything. You just said nothing is true anyway. Why are you saying, now you're claiming that the Bible, are you sure what your statement was true? You're saying that your statements aren't even true. So it is this circular roundabout, ridiculous psychosis that I'm just noticing from these new agers. It's the same people saying these crazy things, and they're also saying, oh, and by the way, no matter what, the Bible's wrong. That's the only thing we know in solipsism.
I'm going to blow their minds, Pillbox, right now, okay? Yeah, it's all artificial. You're right, okay? So here's what's happened. You see, basically, it's all digital, only everything is, obviously, since it's digital and analytical, you know, in the AI world here, it's stored in a big database. Now, it's a giant PVR too. It's one of those recorder things, so they can just go backwards and forwards and see whatever they want. So it's already happened. This moment in time has already happened. And we had someone go back, and then they wrote the Bible, but they had to write it in terms that even the earliest people would understand, because, you know, if you're going to go back in time, you got to go back to the beginning. So there you go. Somebody went back, wrote the Bible, and it's basically an early translation of the data log sheets from the computer of the future. So don't worry, everything's correct.
Yeah, we're still waiting to fax this over to China.
Yeah, just a minute. It's coming. We can't get a cell phone signal in the basement here, but we're getting pictures from Jupiter and Mars. We're all doing fine.
Well, I kind of heard something earlier. I won't mention names, but somebody told me that, well, they could do what the Bible does and predict the future. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I can't wait to see it happen. Crickets.
I can too.
I mean, people literally just say that they can do the same thing. Right. I can do the same thing as the Bible. Are you sure? I don't think so.
A couple things in the chat. One is about other religions. Why can't they be true? Well, that's like saying, why can't I, if I talk to Pillbox, why can't I say I also talk to Jibby? at the same time when I was only talking to one of them. It's because there is such a thing as objective truth. And if something is true and something contradicts that, then the other thing must be false.
But wait a minute, they'll say
binaries.
even worse, Paula. They'll say, well, wait a minute, they both have an I in their name, so clearly it's the same person. Like that's and it's like you have got to be. That's how crazy these people. They'll say, well, then look at the similarities. They both have an I. I've heard how many times do we hear Zeus and Jesus because there's well the letters are there, right? So yes, I am Jibby and Jibby's pillbox. It makes the same amount of sense, and there's no difference. It doesn't matter. And if he has a problem being called pillbox, that's another issue on his own.
And you can write them in French.
Yeah, I speak French.
Oh.
Listen, you got to play this shell game. It's a big shell game. There's lots of shells. It's not like the 3 shell game. That's an easy one. This one's got a whole table full. And somewhere underneath one of those shells is a nut. It's there. That's called the truth. The thing is that everybody has to play this shell game. Some people are a little quicker to find the nut than others. And other people aren't so quick to find the nut because they get strewn off in crazy directions, without having a little bit of guidance, which again is supposed to be the purpose, I suppose, of people that understand what's going on for whatever reason.
I don't even know what a shell game is.
I tried to cover this earlier. I want the same person to tell me, can this be a mouse wearing a new dragon costume, or is it a dragon eating a mouse? Which one is it? Which one I guarantee there's a mouse and a dragon there. Which one is which? Is it the mouse wearing a costume, or is a dragon eating a mouse? If you're saying why can't those other religions be true, then yes, why can't this be a mouse named solipsism mouse wearing a dragon costume?
I think you're completely wrong. I think it's a mouse wearing a dragon costume, eating a dragon wearing a mouse costume.
It's a painting. It's a painting of a lizard. Don't be silly. It's a porthole.
Yeah, it's just an image. It's not really there.
It's the window I'm looking at, right to his house.
But you can interpret it any way you want. Also, the god of the dragon is the log on top of it. As you see, the log's higher, isn't it? So that's God. That's also its ancestor. The whatever gets on top of the other creature is what they turn into. Like you find a bunny rabbit buried on top of your grandpa, your grandpa turned into a bunny rabbit.
Oh no, he hatched a retard. I can't.
So anyway, the argument in the chat, I kind of type, but I get distracted and try to multitask and it doesn't go well. But is that one point is that since we can make simulations with light and vibrations and things, then why is it that our reality isn't a simulation? It's like I think that's backwards logic, because what if the simulations we do are patterned after our reality? I mean, that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean it's a game. It doesn't mean it's not real to us.
If you are made of this stuff. If you do it with your mind and your hands, you're constructing something. You're actually creating. You're like you said, you're not just thinking about it in your head and you didn't actually build it yet. That would be, like you said, that would be false reality, because of course it doesn't exist yet until you actually produce it.
Right. Do I need to own a truck that I can get into, or can I just buy a Matchbox truck and that's going to do the same job?
Well, no, you can sit at home in your chair and just pretend you're in a nice truck and feel the leather in your mind and feel the steering wheel and pretend it's the nicest Dodge Ram in the world. You see, now that would work for you too, and you'd feel just as happy in a certain respect. But again, all we're proving here, though, is that there has to be a creator of, the beginning has to be created. There's just no question about it. Nothing that exists around you. If you just look around the room you're in or anywhere you are right now and think that everything's just happenstance, and we just sort of evolved into this situation somehow, and now I got all this crappy stereo equipment around me.
I don't get it. So what do we have to do to get free? I'm trapped here. I don't know what to do.
What do you have to do to get free?
Listen, we got lots of stuff going to space. We got trillions of dollars in the Queen's throne there. We got gold carriages. We got popes in marble and palaces and so forth. But there's still starving people. We cannot solve this incredible problem. It's absolutely impossible to solve this problem, because you see, you can't fix it, solve starving people in Africa or wherever they're starving, for that matter. It doesn't matter. The point is they're starving. Why? Oh, because they don't have a job. What's the problem here? What are we doing? What is the problem here? Where's all these millionaire, billionaire people? Step up now. What's wrong with you boneheads? Get your ass in gear. Start doing whatever you got to do until everybody has shoes on their feet and is happy with a smile on their face and a piece of fruit in their hand or something. I don't know what we're thinking or what we're doing. Just got to bring it right back to the beginning here, I guess, or smash this whole thing down to the ground and fix it. Don't even know what to say no more, but Jesus is lacing up his ass-kicking boots right now. He's coming down soon. Going to be a real big trampling.
Right. This goes for the sheeps that think an organization like NASA is real. Let's pretend, and this is going to be really difficult. Let's make believe that everything NASA's told us is true.
What are they doing?
Absolutely put. Right.
What are we getting
now? Right, just like you're saying, exactly. If everything they're saying is true, they're the largest group of murdering Schindlers in the history of mankind. These guys are the largest group of criminals ever. And you told us you could do something 60 years ago that we can't do now, and you named your operation the Antichrist, the most important mission ever. And now you can't even do it again. You told us it was the greatest achievement of mankind, and now you're telling us that we don't even have 1930s rocket capabilities.
And what was the purpose?
Okay.
Give me a purpose.
Right. And it was hundreds of trillions of dollars.
Again, for what?
Well,
if there was an infinite amount of free cheese on the moon, I would say, great, get a truck up there and let's get the cheese back so people can eat it. But listen, there ain't nothing out there. This is the funniest part of it all, is that everybody just claps their hands and gladly hands over whatever money to the mind control, the government, doesn't even question it. It's like, listen, are you stupid? What are you getting out of space, man? I mean, every dollar you give to them for space, what comes back to you other than that pretty picture you got on your desktop? That's it. So what are we doing? Where are we going to space?
Right. And people continue to tell the Christians, well, I don't need a book, I don't need a Bible. Then why is everything that's evil related to the Bible? Why are they calling it the Antichrist? It's all related to the Bible, and that's why it's so easy to figure out. It's right in front of your face. That's why God says, you are without excuse. You're telling me to ignore the Bible when you're going after these NASA organizations. That's all they do is try to destroy the Bible. And the Bible literally tells us they're going to do this. It tells us they are going to land on the heavens. They're going to have their nest upon the stars. Wow, what a coincidence. Or again, their most important mission is called Apollo. That's the Antichrist. That's not the anti-Buddha. That's not even the anti of the Old Testament.
It's all hinged on this magical dollar, this money that's worthless. It's ridiculous that people are so brainwashed by money. It's just the most credible thing in the world. And again, it's 1st, 2nd Timothy, whatever it is there, the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. You can't even bring this down to anybody's level. They just, as soon as you mention money, they curl up. If you threaten their money in the least bit of way, you tell somebody, why are you having this argument? They're like, oh, this is an argument over this or that. And I say, oh, it's about money then. And it's like, well, every time, money. Ask yourself what every strife, gripe, worry, trouble, problem, argument, name it. I'll bring it down to money every damn time. Every time. Never fails. Every time somebody's ever told me something, I can boil it down to a common denominator, and it's money. It's a super duper control factor. It's a magic enterprise of control. It's just incredible how they've managed to do this. And people still to this day, you show them $1 in their face, their eyes light up. And I think, look, man, this is a polymer piece of plastic now. It's not even a piece of paper no more. And your eyes lit up like $100 bill. Woo! Man, this isn't worth nothing. You can't even burn this to stay warm. Are you stupid? Not even Paula's vaporizing, gasifying rocket gasifier will fix this problem. If you had 100 stacks of these, you wouldn't be able to stay warm. You'd die from the toxic fumes.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know what he's talking about, some of my early videos when I put up my channel are about how to design, optimize a wood gasifier stove, like a camp stove.
Build one now, because when the power goes out and your dumb ass is sitting there in the cold and dark, you'll be wishing you had one. Holy moly, I'm going to make a whole stack of those things eventually here.
You're going to have to, because apparently if they come from different countries and have different pictures on them, they have different values somehow.
Yeah. And people don't understand the nature of fiat currency. It has to have ever-increasing debt. You cannot ever get rid of debt or the whole thing collapses. And that's why there's a national debt and nobody does anything about it. And people are just messing with your head when they say, oh, we have a terrible debt problem, we must reduce our debt. We don't owe anything. It's the elites who robbed the whole country, at least in the United States in 1913, robbed the whole country by taking all our money, giving it to the Federal Reserve, and they loan it back to us at interest, and that's where the debt comes from. And they can print money out of thin air, which means none of us should have to work at all. They can just print it, and it's a whole scam from top to bottom.
And they're stealing it from the future right now, because they not only did they steal your grandparents' money that was in their hands, and then your parents' money that was half in their hands and half in debt, and now we're fully in debt, which means we don't even have money to steal. They've already stolen your children's money by printing ahead, so to speak. This has gone way past what's acceptable. If anyone doesn't see that, it's beyond my belief. But every time you turn on the news, where all the meatballs go and watch every night, you see, I keep an eye on the news. I got to, because I got to know what the idiots are watching. The idiots get to see our idiot up there, the main idiot standing on his podium. And what does he say? The two words that come out of their mouth every single day is job creation, economy. Job creation, economy. That's every time you hear them talk, they talk, oh, well, it's all about the economy and job creation. Okay, it's like, listen, we don't want a job. Shut up, okay? We don't want your job or your economy no more. We don't want to pay you especially, so get out of here. Okay, that's it. That's simple as that.
It really is. That's what I was going to bring up, is the fact that the debt doesn't exist. There's no such thing as debt, because the money doesn't exist, and the value of the money doesn't exist. The desirability of paper is absolutely not that desirable. I don't want to work to get paper for the rest of my life to make my paper house. All right.
Let's think about this too. Let's think about if you want to make people mad, okay, and you want to really make people mad, this is how you do it. First of all, you divide them all up into lots of groups, because right now everybody you know in different groups is, you got a buddy, for example, that's into Bitcoin, stock market investments, this, that, or the other thing. You got another person that's into whatever. Okay, everybody's got their little niche for dollars and so forth. Then you have responsible people who, you know, just save normally and put their money in a savings account and so forth. You have others who are so deeply in debt, for example, that they, you know, they're big players in the market. They'll take real big chances with lots of big money dollars. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it works, I guess. Sometimes it doesn't. They're players. They don't mind. When the whole thing crashes, though, and everything is zeroed out, so to speak, the big loser is the responsible person. Okay, so the person who's the real, I'm a good guy, I'm a police officer, I'm a this, I'm a that. Okay, you just think you're a model citizen, so to speak, and you've done everything correctly. You're getting screwed the worst, because you were the major contributor towards the system. Mm-hmm. Okay? Then you have the people who are super, super in debt and so forth, who won't have any debt suddenly and won't even owe that money anymore. And the person, like, you know, that covets these things will be so mad that guy doesn't have to give back money. You know, just like when you see these people get away with so forth on the scandals on the politicians and whoever our leaders are, you know, people get away with all kinds of craziness. Millions of dollars. Meanwhile, they're banging down your door for $450 from the IRS or some nonsense, you know? Again, this is a whole scam. This whole thing's a scam.
It is. It absolutely is.
And the victim's always going to be the guy that's trying to be the good guy. So you can't get too complacent and be walked on. You know, you don't want to have people trampling the hell all over you. At some point, you got to stop the trampling. You know, I agree with turning the other cheek once in a while and letting somebody get away with it once. You know, fool me once, okay. But again, that can't go too far. So.
Yeah, and the thing about when it comes to back to the spirituality issue is that one thing we can say as Christians, at least having a more rational kind of a faith than compared to the others, because everybody has faith at some point, is that we have an end game that we know is going to take place, and we know it as much as anybody knows anything, because we've at least got Jesus rising from the dead to point to and go, hey, he told us the scriptures were true, and I'm following this guy because this is objective. It's a past event that can't change, and there's credible witnesses that saw this happen. Up to 500 people saw him alive, dead, alive again. And so I'm going that way. Whether anybody else thinks that's rational evidence or not, I'm going that way. And this book is telling me how it started, what went wrong, how it's going to be fixed, and that we're near the end game and everything will be made right. There will be justice and everything will be explained. And every bad guy will get what's coming to him, and the good people will get rewarded, and it's going to be awesome. And so while we're here in this life, we don't look forward to this life. We can't wait to get out, but we know we got stuff to do while we're here. And so whatever happens here, we can deal with it, not only because we know what the end game is, but because we have someone to go through it with us. And that's the whole point of why we have this faith and not some other faith, because they don't, A, offer anything better, and B, don't offer anything as good, because we have, like I said, something we can point to that anchor our faith in. And then we have someone that whose presence we can sense that goes through it with us, not to get us out of it. We suffer like everybody else does, but to give us a future, a hope and a future, as the Bible says, that is, and people don't like the word hope sometimes, but it's better than hopelessness. I can tell you that. But that's what this is all about to us on the panel as Christians. This is not just a game to us. It's not a simulation to us. This is very real, because what we do here, what we believe here, determines how things are going to be when we get out of this construct, whatever anybody wants to say about its nature. So just had to get that off my chest.
Oh, I feel for the people that are, again, you think about having a nice long life and being a grandfather, or, having children and having land and all kinds of wonderful things and a white picket fence. Everybody wants to do that. No question about it. But is that achievable now? No, look around. This is past. The sweet spot's already long gone, long ago. So it's time to face reality. I hate to crush people's dreams, but you have to ask them to wake up at some point and say, look around, man. This isn't nothing like, if your grandfather was standing beside you right now, he'd be warning you, bing, bing, bing on the head. Hey, wake up, look around. This isn't right. These people shouldn't be handling your finances and telling you what to do. And, they would have a lot of different opinions on what's going on right now than you would. So it's past that day. We can't be worldly, like we said. Unfortunately, when we know what's going on here, you just got to face it now. You're just gonna have to face it. You're better off knowing the truth too, because you don't want this all coming crashing down as a surprise, because when it's a surprise, I'm dreading the day that something changes drastically, when people are running around asking why, it's going to sound like a bunch of children in kindergarten running, oh, why, but why, when kids are, and it's fun, you have to sit there and answer the why game for an hour. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to really be sucky.
Right. That's another thing too, is even if nobody really knows the truth, pick something, just pick something and stay with it. That's better than running from one thing to the next. It's like, like you were saying about little kids, like at a playground or something, they'll go halfway up a ladder and then jump off and go halfway up swing a couple of times and jump off that and go to something else. It's like, finish something, will you? Just land somewhere, play there for a bit and finish it. It's bad for the human psyche, for whatever reason, that goes flitting around from one truth system or worldview to another like that. It's hard. And I know there's people in the chat here who would say the same thing. When your paradigm shifts like that, it's really violent to your soul. And even if people are taking a chance, so to speak, and picking the wrong thing, at least I think there's something to be said for picking something, and nothing to be ashamed of in picking something.
You got to let go too.
Yeah.
You got to let go of the world a bit, because people don't, they got their hand firmly clamped on the branch and they don't want to let go. Unfortunately. And I've been in that situation and I had to do it. People thought I was dead for a couple of years because, you just drop off the face of the earth. You have to almost sacrifice everything, maybe sell some stuff or whatever to get some extra bucks in the bank there, so you can literally not do anything or dedicate yourself to have a lot more time on your hands to, researching and so forth. If you're really serious about, hey, why is all these people awake and why am I a dumbass? Well, if you're in that boat right now, you got to find a way to make it happen, and it's going to take some sacrifice. Now, for some of us, in my case and in some other people's cases, I know things happened, supernaturally, that just caused you to have a lot of extra time on your hands, like an injury, for healing from an injury and so forth like that. So that gives you a lot of extra hours in the day to suddenly read things you don't like to do, or even hear the audio version. They can do that too. But either way, finding the truth, looking for the truth, hearing everybody's everything. Don't close any doors. Just listen to everything. What comes true in your conscious, it'll feel right. Things that are right feel right when you get led down the right road anyway.
Well, that's the thing is that's what we were talking about. Solipsism is what feels right to a person, you know, that's their own truth. But I understand what you're saying, but we got to balance that with things that are objective. And then you have to define, well, how and what is objective? You know, what does it mean to have something outside of yourself, because your feelings can change. And that's the whole question we've been going back and forth on all day today, pretty much, is defining that, you know.
Let's use your buffet example too, though. Make sure you've tasted all of the buffet before you open your mouth. That's another thing. You know, you got to go through this whole darn thing first. You don't get through the first 3 things in the buffet and then go, oh, yeah, this is it. I figured it out. No. You got to go through the whole gamut before you can come back and start your review. You know?
What's that?
That's what I did. I ended up here anyways. Not really. I went through a lot of bull crap. Like, there was so much ridiculousness.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crap out there. But you know what? Sometimes even watching these other stuff that's just, you know, is not right. It's a good to have in your arsenal, because you've got to be able to explain it. When someone else brings it up at another date, you got to tell them why it isn't correct. So it's, again, knowing how to fix every car is important to a mechanic. You know, if you just fix one brand of automobile, it's not too useful. It's more important if you can be more diverse, I guess is the right word. So I don't mind, you know, listening to anybody's nonsense, like I say, especially when you got young people or noobs and so forth, and they're into the new age, whatever they're into. I let them run with it for a while, because eventually they got to come to some conclusion that they can bring to the table, and then you can burn it, blow it out of the water, or show them something better to counteract it.
Right. Brian was here for a second. I guess he has connection issues or something. He should be back.
Who cares? Nobody likes Brian anyway.
Yeah.
Or that Jimmy guy neither.
They're both about the same.
Yeah, nobody cares about
They're
it.
all the same, right?
Yeah, what's the difference between Savvy Steak and a Jibby Jedi?
Tell me about it.
The sauce? I don't know.
Savvy Jedi, a Jibby Jedi, a Steak Jedi, you know, that's all the same. It's just maybe
Talking about food. I'm getting hungry.
You know what? I actually had a piece of steak.
you could always eat some rocks, Paul.
I had
Rocks
some
and
steak
steak are about the
yesterday.
same.
It was good.
Have some rocks.
I hadn't had a piece of steak for so darn long, because I just haven't had the position to, and I just, you know, I was cruising through the grocery store. Don't know why. I just like.
If you don't know how to cook it right, you shouldn't even be buying it.
Well, that's another problem. Is normally, you know, I would like to have someone else to eat a steak with or whatever, but I mean, it was a small little portion on the little tray, just begging my name. So I said,
Dude, hit me up and I'll give you the best steak of your life, dude.
Oh yeah.
I know how to cook those things so darn well. It was funny. My stepdad was telling him, he was like, "Oh man, I don't like the look of that steak. It looks like it's going bad."
Have you ever? Wait a minute. Let me ask you this, Savvy. Have you ever cooked a Jedi?
Are you?
The last time
How do you know? And how do you know the steak wasn't a Jedi? Okay, I did notice, Paul, there were some extracurricular excuses, and that's the point. Every time we prove the point, then we shift the goalpost. Now, if things are temporary, they're not real. Okay, so if I get my Dodge Ram totaled, I never owned a Dodge Ram. If I break my guitar, I didn't used to teach guitar. I mean, this is just the desperation from the solipsism mouse religion is just going to get worse and worse.
You got to hit the bottom before you can climb back up. That's it. The snakes and ladders game works like that. That's all I say to people is that if you're just slipping down that snake and you can't figure out why, it's because, again, you're rejecting what's in front of you.
I just don't know what it's like to be that, though. When I was an ignorant space monkey, when I asked a question and somebody gave me an answer, I usually thought about it. Even if I was confused, I wouldn't just regurgitate another new excuse that has nothing to do with my first excuse. Like, what is going on? That's why I get frustrated with this kind of BS, is because wait a minute, I just realized I'm giving real answers to people that think real answers don't exist. So I guess I'm the dumb one. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Well, I thought I knew it all when I was young, too, and I just blew it all off, didn't think nothing of it, and said, oh, you bunch of stupid people that were walking around in the desert didn't know what they were talking about. And, of course, you know, oddly enough, the truth came from the strange place, too, that somebody said, the person that told me the Bible was real isn't the type of person you'd expect to tell you the Bible is real. That's all I'm going to tell you. And you'd be like, really? It's as real as can be, buddy. Don't worry about that.
Wow, that might be the best thing you ever said.
Well, again, go into any Masonic temple. It's sitting on the altar right in the middle of the place. So start ringing your bell right there. Ding-a-ling.
Well, it says Masonic on it, though.
Well, they got their own little twist to it, but that's their
Right?
version.
They all have their own twist. That's exact, and that's the excuse I've been waiting for. I'm shocked I haven't seen that. What about all the denominations? It's always one of the final excuses before they give up. And well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Let's see. That's funny. Yeah, you're telling me that Satan isn't going after any other belief system except for Christianity. Wow, what a coincidence!
Oh, yeah,
a million
probably,
different versions of Christianity. Oh, no kidding. Wow, I wonder what Satan would do. Crickets.
Yeah. And all these Christians that converted after watching other Christians walking up to get beheaded, jumping in to get eaten by the lions, you know, whatever it was. Again, you know, supernaturally, somehow they were comforted, protected at that time somehow to go through that. And other people recognized that somehow, you know, that they couldn't believe it. They're like, well, why the hell would anybody not just say, okay, and give up, you know, and say yes and get on with it? No, they got killed instead. Well, if that many people are lining up to get killed, there's got to be something to it, you know. I mean, that alone, it'll be convincing enough even in the end times, I think, for those half in the bag people that were, you know, it talks about during tribulation and so forth. I think we'll have no problem convincing certain people at that point, you know.
Yeah, it's like I said when we were going over Revelation as we're going through it, Find Out Elected, is that there will, you know, there's always been this demand of a lot of people that, you know, God needs to appear to me and show me stuff. And it's like by the sixth seal, there will be no doubt that
Right.
God is real, because they're all hiding in holes in the ground going, hide us from the face of the one on the throne and the wrath of the Lamb. It's like everybody will believe the God of the Bible at that point. They won't love him, but they will believe in him, and it won't be a question anymore like it is now, a question of faith. It'll be sight, and it won't be a pretty sight. That's the problem.
And before that, there's even going to be more amazing stuff that's going to be completely deceptive. So that's the worst
Right.
part of this all, is that these people, again, I try to give some truth to people. If they completely mock it or whatever, all you can do is wish them luck. Those that
Right.
at least have listened and might not agree with you, but at least said, oh, well, that's an interesting view or whatever. And you know that they were just thinking in their head, okay, well, that's kind of weird. Well, that's fine. At least in their head now, they've got something to rest on. So, for example, if you've never seen fire in your life, you know what I mean, and something catches on fire, you know, your first thought is what? You know, oh my goodness, what is this and what's going on here? Of course. Well, if somebody told you that maybe one day you're going to see this stuff called fire and it's going to start burning and it's going to be hot and smoke and everything, and then you can just throw water on it and everything will be fine. You see, at least you would have a bit of a foundation to work with rather than stand back and watch the flames. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. I think I'm almost at the point where it's like, do you save this rusty car or do you scrap it? You know what I mean? And I kind of think we're right at that point right now. We're making that decision right now with certain people, because the division is getting clearly made right now between full mockery and who's really gone up the wrong side, and those that are in the middle types. In the middle is okay, because in the middle means you got your mind open and at least you've seen enough flat earth, this, that, whatever going on to convince you that, hey, these people can't all be insane, you know.
Right. And that's a parable right out of the New Testament about the wheat and the tares, and they had to grow together until the harvest. Otherwise, you would damage the wheat because they look the same. Only until they sprout heads do you really tell the difference, and then they'll be separated. And one thing I don't think anybody disagrees about is right now we're seeing evil coming out of the closet and parading down Main Street, almost literally. It's like, you know, things that have been hidden and in the dark all this time are coming out right into the open. And the choice is becoming clearer because we see that there is a strong difference between good and evil and darkness and light. And it is time for people to make the choice, because now it's switching from faith to sight. It's switching from the age of grace and the church age to the age of judgment and the age of sight. And then it's just a question of, do you accept this or not? You know, this is the reality that you have to deal with. Are you going to accept it or not? And it's going to be a really simple choice, but it'll be a harsh choice too. And that's hopefully what the church is doing right now, is trying to convince people to make the right choice now, so you don't have to be making it at a really bad time. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Paula, one day there will be people that say there's not even really a reality to really be really worried about. So isn't that nice?
They'll find out that their reality is going to be painful, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll see if.
How about this? This is the same knee-jerk reaction when someone say, "What difference does flat Earth matter?" Well, you're saying, "What difference does everything matter?" So talk about really egg on your face. I mean, these people are calling themselves truthers, and we always make fun of people when they say, "What does the flat Earth matter?" And that's one of the most ridiculous. It gets a lot worse. Guess what?
Like, think about it. If this was true, what they were saying, okay, there's no consequences. You live in an AI, whatever. You create your own reality and so forth. So you ask them, what do you do for a living? It's like, I deliver pizza or whatever. You know, it's like, well, why the hell would you do that? Why aren't you a rock star? Why aren't you this or that or the next thing? For example, you know, why isn't everybody Superman and super successful and whatever they want to be? If that's true, you know, why is it the way it is right now? It's all mundane and kind of boring, and people just doing their little things every day. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, if what you were really saying was true, then you should be able to right now just go around murdering people with no consequences, or, you know, whatever you want to do, essentially. So again, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Right, you're throwing morality. Absolutely. The first thing that goes is you're admitting that there is no crime and everything the elite does is okay anyway. So I mean, it's a real problem. I mean, it's scary.
Yeah, so it's almost a Luciferian teaching in its own right. Do what thou wilt, if you will, but only, again, within the constructs of the system. So what is the constructs of the system? Well, it's whatever you can do not get caught. You know, so if you can be a serial killer and not get caught, well, then I guess you're doing all right. You know? So,
right. Could you imagine teaching people? I mean, you know, we get made fun of because there's Sunday schools teaching children about the Bible. Well, I guess maybe we should teach children that there's really no such thing as morality because we're in a simulation anyway. Man, talk about a nice change in society.
well, yeah, we just teach everybody to be dog eat dog and go and take and get ahead. Whatever you got to do to cheat, man, and then twist the guy's handlebars and make him crash. You know, I mean, what kind of world would this be? Again, so what's the purpose? And how did we ever become even a least bit empathetic or have the least bit of love or compassion towards each other if that's all true, what they're saying? Because in reality, our examples above us are what? Like, you ask somebody, why don't you have a piece of land? They're like, well, I can't afford it. I'm like, well, why should you have to afford it? The earth is here and you were born onto the earth. Shouldn't you have a little piece? It's like, well, somebody got here before me and they acquired it all. And well, how did they acquire it? Well, they have a big army and they took it by force. So what's stopping you from doing the same thing? Why don't you just go and take what you got to take then, if that's the case in your artificial world, you know? Like, what part of this artificial construct reality is stopping you from going out and being a king? You know?
Also, why aren't they hanging out with large Stephen Crust? I mean, shouldn't he be the perfect example of a solipsist mouse world? I mean, that's, to me, I mean, well, why don't we go and hang out with him now? You know, what difference does it make?
Again, he's on the other end of the spectrum. I can't, this whole, everybody's got their little thing, you know, going on, man. I mean, I don't know, Pillbox.
It's crazy, and that's the problem.
Crazy is not even a good word to use no more, because crazy is stuff that I did when I was young. That doesn't even qualify anymore. Insane, psychopathic, malevolent, you know, vindictive. I don't know what words to use. All those kind of real conniving evil, you know?
Right.
This is why people accept pornography too and things like that. And this isn't hurting anybody anyway. You know, pornography's fine. You know, who cares? Oh, who cares that children can get a hold of it now too? Because that's now the reality is that every parent, you know, or at least, you know, 5 out of 10 parents probably leave their phone or let their kids use their, you know, devices like they shouldn't. So, you know, what difference does it make now? We just expose children to the worst possible things in the world now, and it doesn't matter because it's a virtual reality.
Well, like we were saying, the channels of evil, so to speak, people expect it to come parading along with horns on its head and a pitchfork. And I say, no, you head, it's coming through your app. It's coming through this. It's coming through that. I've even asked super hardcore Christians, you know, I said, how many people are in the church and got their smartphone in there? And they're like, almost everybody. I'm like, see, that's the first thing that should be outside the damn door of the church is a fucking box where you throw your cell phone into it, just like you would in any other club. You don't bring that friggin' thing in here. It doesn't come into this building. It's that simple. You might as well bring the porthole of hell in with you. Just to start. Beyond the other things that are going on. electronics in themselves are so terrible, man, at this point, and the web that they're building with this electronic stuff is not only frightening. If you're even the least bit awake, and if you're a techie guy or whatever you are and think this is all fantastic and wonderful, you're brain dead. Yeah.
Yep. It's Satan's way of simulating godhood, because he can't do it for real. It's his simulated reality, if there's anything simulated about it, where he uses a network of spies, so to speak, to, as having his eyes and ears everywhere. He doesn't have real omniscience, so he uses his army of demons, human or otherwise, to collect information, because that information is what he would need to, pretend to be God. And so that's what all this is about. That's why they have to know everything, and why they don't want you to have an independent thought. They want you to be afraid of your own shadow, and to know, they want you to know you're being spied on, because they want you to be afraid of your own thoughts. And that's the way he can exercise godlike control, because that's all Satan ever wanted. And this kind of knowledge comes from the Bible, and this gives us an advantage that other religions might not have, because we understand the game that's being played here. If there's anything virtual going on, it's real to us, but it is a contest, I think is a better word, a cosmic chess match and a battle of wits. And Satan has failed at every opportunity to try to thwart God's plans to redeem mankind. And he's still going to try a little bit more, but this is the kind of assurance that it gives us, and not that we're going to escape trouble in this life, but that we are on the winning side, the winning team, if we choose to be, and that it's not just a matter of being right and everyone else wrong. It's just the nature of truth, that if something is true and other things contradict it, they are by definition wrong, and everybody believes that they're right and everyone else is wrong. So I don't understand that criticism of only our faith, but
that's everything evil is good and everything good is evil, and everything's backwards right now. If you ask any Joe Blow if this is good or bad, they say it's good when it's bad every time. Doesn't matter. You say is toothpaste good or bad, they say it's good. You can't win now. There's every single thing that we is tipped on its head. That's all there is to say. I mean, it's almost impossible to explain this to somebody. When somebody says here this is good, you might as well just say forget it. Don't give me that, because it's like candy or anything else. Of course it tastes good because it's bad. Okay, it's right. Really easy. It's easy to figure out, man. I mean,
yeah, people in the chat are asking. One person at least is asking about, why is this so important? It's like Jesus said, what good does it do to gain the whole world and you lose your soul? This is really important, apparently important enough for God and Satan to fight over your soul. Each individual soul for all of human history, they've been fighting over. Why? It must matter. It must be important. That's all I can conclude from what I observe, and so, yeah, it's a big deal.
Well, that question is inciting that why is all this crime that they've done to us trying to destroy the Bible, or trying to destroy the fact that we're on a flat plane of existence? Why does this truth matter? That you're saying, why does all this crime matter? That's a serious problem. You're saying that why does it matter that they've killed millions of innocent people? That's what you're literally asking. Why does that matter? It's really frightening.
They asked in the chat why we haven't mentioned the Vatican. Well, it's a big topic we're on right now. And I have actually. I'm going to be mentioning it at Fat Elected. Yeah, I was just going to say, I thought you did anyway. But yeah, that's a prophetic thing. And I have, if you're interested there in the chat, I have 2 videos that have Babylon in the title. And they explain that the Vatican is the current seat of the ancient Babylonian religion. It went from Babylon to Pergamos, which is in Western Turkey. And the Revelation, the chapters 1 and chapters 2 or 3, where the letters are, it says that the people in Pergamos were there where Satan has his throne. That's where the Babylonian religion went. And then it went to Italy, where they wear fish hats. So yeah, I know all about the Vatican. Don't worry about that.
I would even give up Jonathan Kleck on that subject. He's a good one on that one. He'll point out some stuff that is so obvious it's not even funny. And at the same time, if you were wandering around there in person, you probably wouldn't notice. Again, sometimes with the technology, it makes sense too that things can be revealed only in their time. you couldn't have gotten a drone shot or a high altitude shot or this shot or a Google Earth shot or a, you know, being able to check the internet for 100 different sources of a subject, or, you know, books that are now translated onto stuff onto the internet that you never would have accessed in the library yourself, and all kinds of different things. You know, just in general, the stuff available now for those looking is infinite. So you
Right.
you could never see everything that you want to see right now in your lifetime if you started Googling away right now at everything you want to know. So
I thought it was pretty well known that the Vatican is obviously one of the largest satanic organizations in the history of mankind. And this is where we
Exactly.
get our heliocentric model. This is where we get our pseudoscience. This is where we get the Big Bang. This is where we get our monkey to man evolutionary pseudoscience concepts and everything you can think of. I mean, the Vatican hid behind the names of these fake pseudo intellectuals of history, such as, you know, the Copernicus. It's all from the Vatican. It's all a deception. They pretend like they're scientists. No, they're hired. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's all Vatican. If you ask me, I think that they have been the largest player for hundreds of years.
And in North America, I'm sitting right on the hump right here. Okay. And even I'll tell you what, I saw a video today on somebody who I wouldn't promote, but you know, he did have one thing he hit right on the head. Right. He was yapping today about, again, the influence of the Vatican and so forth, and when these things traveled over to North America. Montreal is absolutely the hub. This place, I'll take videos someday. I'll go down to the St. Joseph's Oratory or something for you and take pictures. That's literally like a mini Vatican here in Montreal. There's all kinds of stuff like that here. It's exactly the same. It's sickening, man. In fact, when you really go and take the details, you need a good camera with a good zoom, though, if you're going to go look at the little gargoyles and stuff on top of the building and weird things like that. You see, normally you just walk up and think, oh, this is neat, cool, tourist attraction, historical, lovely, click, you take a picture and away you go. If you said to somebody, what did you see? What symbols, what signs, what type of things were on the building? They'd say, oh, I don't know. It was just a beautiful building and had wood doors and looked real nice.
Right.
Again, not paying attention because there's nothing really, no alarm bells in your head are telling you to look. But once you've got this suggested to you, you start looking for those things. Once you start looking, man, it's horrifying, unfortunately, because everywhere you turn, all those same people that you vote for, that you think are so great, that look good in a suit, that you Instagram and Twitter over and whatever else, this is all the people that are doing all of this. You see, unfortunately.
And I think it's God's way of I don't know, I can't think of the right word, not irony, but a delicious sense of humor, I guess, the way he used the Catholic Church in its intentions, like with the story of Joseph in the Old Testament, where what people meant for evil, God turned into good, because they inadvertently preserved the Bible in a lot of forms for us, even though they were trying to hide it. You know, they kept it locked away, first of all, physically, and then they locked it away in language by making it stay in Latin. You know, after they translated it from the Greek and Hebrew, they put it in Latin so that common people who didn't speak Latin or read couldn't know what the Bible really said. And so they could put their traditions over top of it and make it say whatever they wanted and say, well, our traditions, you know, take precedence anyway over the Bible, which incidentally is proof that they did not write the Bible. Why would they hide it if they wrote it? It doesn't make any sense. And it's undeniable that the Catholic Church tried to hide the Bible. They burned people at the stake for trying to put it in the common language. Why would they do that if they wrote it?
That's the dumbest excuse ever. I know. Yeah. I've heard people say that, but this is the funniest thing. Anything they're trying to take away from you, you should be damn suspicious of. So again, the Bible, again, I'm going to throw in marijuana. Okay. It's as simple as that. It's a plant. It was on the earth. It's got a purpose. I'm not saying run around smoking it. I'm just saying there's something to it. There's something to everything that was put here for us. It certainly shouldn't come in the form of a pill. It certainly shouldn't come in a box or a bag or whatever else in a pink wrapping. Everything you needed was here. There was animals were running around. Carrots were growing, whatever else. Again, can we just not expand that system so that absolutely nobody has any problems with having a place to live, having some food to eat, and so forth? Okay, let's get back to the basics now. Then we can work on the new, you know, your new stereo and whatever else you're thinking you want. The point is, we cannot figure out basics of living the average person right now, if you took away their electricity and took away their devices and so forth, wouldn't last an hour. So we're done. We're done already. We're in the bag already. This is just it. The only thing left is tripping the switch. Right? What's that song they got going on there? I was just listening the other day. Another thing I'm into, the lyrics. Trip Switch is the. I can't remember the name of the band now. It'll come to me.
Sorry, I can't help you with this one.
I just popped it onto my list the other day because I was listening to the lyrics and they were saying, "What are we gonna do when the lights go out?" Okay, exactly. What are we gonna do when the lights go out? We're gonna start trying to listen to the whining of the millennial snowflakes.
Yes, seriously.
Yeah, you're going to open the window. There's going to be dead silence for about 30 seconds, and then you're going to hear a muttering type of a murmuring thing, like sounds like a zillion voices all at once, and that's what it's going to be. Why isn't this device working? What's going on? Why isn't
Yep. Yeah.
Well, if that doesn't work, try the toaster. Just put some forks and knives in it. It should work.
Yeah, it's amazing what people can make. It's like they've done in like Cuba and places like that where they had, they were basically frozen in time in the 1960s technology or whatever, cars especially. They find ways to make stuff work. And I've seen people make musical instruments out of trash, plastic trash,
There was a show called either Cuban Chrome or Custom Chrome. I think it was Cuban Chrome, though. I can't remember. But it was a little car show. They only had a few episodes. And it was really good because the guy had brought, good shoulder pack cams and sat in this person's garage. I mean, it's not a garage like we picture a garage. This is the guy's a wood shack in back of the dude's wood shack that he lives in. Okay. And it's not even waterproof. You know what I mean? And this person's hand building an Alfa Romeo or something, out of sheet metal aluminum, pounding that he was salvaged from the junkyard. I mean, and you're thinking, what? And it's like, well, he's like, I can't afford an Alfa Romeo. I really love this car and the style and everything else, but I can't buy one, so I'm going to make it. I mean, that's me. Okay, I'm that guy too, because there's no way I'm just gonna pay big money for something that I know I can make or do myself almost as well. Those people are not only resourceful, but again, good example of where your mind better be at when you don't have every little convenience at hand. For example, if you can't even remember how to make muffins without the recipe, and the only way you can get the recipe is through your iPad, well, you got problems. You better find your grandma's cookbook and put that somewhere safe.
Right. Having some kind of basic life skill is a good idea, of course, but I think people they underestimate how well they're going to do all by themselves. You have to have a group of people with different skills and have a community. And the best time to form one is right now, when you still can get tools and seeds and bags and whatever things you need to get started, and form that community now somewhere. And the only problem then is finding a place where you can do that, because some big government with a big army is going to come along and take it from you. So here we are.
In case you didn't notice, almost everybody awake seems to be joining up on the internet. And the reason they're doing that is because they can't find people local, or they literally can hardly find people to talk to physically in the real world and meet unless they travel far. So this is a peppering of people everywhere, it seems. It's really strange too, because I would have thought in a big city that you'd get through this YouTube and all of a sudden you'd have a ton of people just from your city coming up and saying, hey, I'm from there too, hey, let's get together. You know what I mean? This would be easy. And the tactical team would start to form immediately. But this isn't what's happening, you see. And even the people that you do care about, or the people who have the skills you need, they aren't awake. It's one of the other. You can't win. So eventually, though, I think this is the problem. This is why I don't burn too many bridges. I like to keep certain people on the back burner just in case, because I know that guy, when something cuckoo happens, he's gonna immediately go, what Mike was saying was right, and now I better go find him and talk to him. Okay, so at least the bridge isn't burned. You want to make sure that whatever happens, I mean, we got scenarios stacked up here a mile deep at this point, but whatever it is, it ain't good. None of it's good.
Right. And that's the thing, is in the end, the only prepping that really is going to get you through, especially times that are where we live in this world of total surveillance, is going to be your spiritual prepping, because Nothing else is going to matter. Yeah, I mean, there isn't anything you can have that they can't take from you except your faith.
That's why they divide us up, though, because they don't want two or more praying in the name of Jesus. That's for sure. You don't, God forbid you get two or more people and start praying anywhere. God forbid somebody is hurt or whatever, and you say, hey, who believes in Jesus? Come over, let's pray for this person. And everybody scoffs like healing's not possible. Okay, again, until everybody brings back the actual Puritan beliefs, I guess, of the first day of Christianity, or, where things were possible and nobody questioned it because they had witnessed it. It's been passed down since then to now, and it's not for nothing. So wake up. I don't know what to say other than that. And it doesn't have to be, what most people got in their mind is immediate. Oh, does that mean I got to head off to church on Sunday and start handing over my money and get my suit out of the closet? No, doesn't mean that one bit.
That's another thing, that some of the common misconceptions about what Christian faith is all about, and it's largely the church's fault for doing this, but it was predicted. But that's the thing, is it's not about, going to a building and listening to an orator give a nice speech and listening to professional musicians make you feel spiritual and then passing a plate and handing them money and then going home and doing it again next week. That's not what the Bible says. Yeah.
God's going to be pissed, man. He's stealing his tithes. And then what did you do with it? Did you give it? How did the tithes you gave over on Sunday get to the poor people? Explain that to me. Okay, well, and they tell you it doesn't. It went to the heating bills. It went to a new carpet for the church. It went to the property taxes. It went to this, and this. They got a list up to 150,000 deep a month. And I'm like, well, okay, what are you talking about?
And that's the thing, is any preacher you would listen to that tries to tell you have to tithe always has to go to the Old Testament. They can't get it out of the New Testament. It's not there. And even then, they don't read all the Old Testament. They don't read the part where it says, for example, in Deuteronomy, it says, okay, there's a certain festival you have to go to and you're supposed to bring sacrifices. Okay, bring animals and crops, not money, animals and crops. But it says, if the place is too far away to take all that stuff with you, cash it in, take your money, carry it with you, go to the place, rebuy that stuff. But what do you do with it? You give it to a priest? No, you eat it yourself. And you even buy strong drink, it says. That the Southern Baptists don't like to hear that. But it says you buy that stuff for yourself and your family and your friends, and you have a party. You consumed your own tithe. And most of the time for Israel, as a national welfare, that's what its purpose is twofold. One was to take care of the poor, and the other was to take care of the priests who had no land of their own and couldn't farm. They had no means of support. And that's why if you had a farm, you gave your best stuff to the temple so that they could either give it to the priests or give it to the poor. And that's what it was. It was never money. It was never anybody's salary. It was never for a building or carpet or choir robes or any of that stuff.
Most importantly, too, was that you firsthand were there watching, which means you're not a lazy ass handing over your money because you're lazy and you don't really want to go do it yourself. You'd rather just give it over to someone else and think that they're going to do it. Well, listen, that's foolishness in itself. That's like handing your money to the Red Cross, United Way, or anything else. Now, everybody did that at some point, I'm sure, the March of Dimes and all this other stuff. If you dig into their financials, you'll find out that your tithes ain't getting where they're supposed to be getting. So
exactly.
Get off your butt. So any preacher will tell you, if you're that concerned about it, then you should go out right now and find some person that's less fortunate than you, firsthand witness that they absolutely do need your help and money, okay? That they're not some scammer, that they're not, whatever. The point is, if you really cared, you would find a way to give 10% of your earnings to someone less fortunate than yourself. And if everybody did that, then you would have a hard time finding people less fortunate than ourselves. There wouldn't exist people less fortunate than ourselves. Everybody would just have a basic understanding that, it's pretty common sense that everybody should have somewhere dry and warm to sleep. It's pretty common sense that everybody should have food once a day at least. It's pretty common sense that if you need shoes to walk outside, then you should have some shoes. Okay, so these are just not... That's not rocket science or NASA. I don't need any space agency to tell me that. When do we start doing that again? So back up, let's redirect NASA's budget. Everybody pray for that tonight. The redirection of NASA's budget for the next month towards the people that need it. I don't know. I've been praying for, what I was praying for lately is for the I just said, God, expose this Hollywood stuff, all this pedophilia, all this nonsense. Everybody's talking about sexual abuse and everything else. Man, it's just been flying out of the news in the last month. Just insanity. Every single person is getting accused of this, that, and the next thing. And I'm sure there's false accusations. I'm sure lots of it's true. Who cares? Either way, it's getting exposed. People will start Googling it, looking it up. The topic will become a little more popular. And hopefully, with any luck, it'll lead to somewhere else that they'll find evil and start seeking it out so they can be aware,
Right. Been some stuff going on in the chat. First, let me do the last thing first. As far as that Texas shooting goes, it depends on who you ask. There does seem to be some real elements to it, but on the other hand, the story of course, the official story is a big pack of lies. There were multiple shooters. If it was real, it seems to have been, but there were multiple shooters. But before that, there's some tension going on among people I like all the people, and I wish everyone would try to give each other a little more slack. I don't compromise. I know nobody's compromised. I'm not asking anybody to compromise the faith, but just to be more aware of the fact that we are trying to convince people that Jesus is real and not just win a fight. And on the other hand, this does go both ways. I mean, most of the time, and half the reason for this hangout is that we get trashed up one side, down the other, 24/7 in all the hangouts. I've watched other hangouts in recent days where good friends of mine, including myself, are being trashed while we're not there to defend ourselves and just treated like garbage. But not to say that's an excuse to give it back. But on the other hand, I think we could all be a little less condemnatory as far as, people. I mean, that we all have wrenches. You all have wrenches there for a reason. You're people I trust. So, but it is getting late for me.
Yeah,
and if I wasn't hosting, I would just, let you guys go. But I need to shut it down, I think. And I just hate to see squabbling in the chat. But
stop squabbling. Why do people squabble? Just mind your own damn business, number one. Somebody says something you don't like, go somewhere else and do something else. I mean, don't get offended. Why do people have to be so offended? You should feel sorry for somebody. If you think you're so right about something and somebody else is so wrong, you should feel sorry for them. I mean, this is the problem right now. We are so easily pushed into these little troubles, squabbles, like you say.
Yeah, I'm not saying everybody was in the chat, just to reference the chat again. But
no, that's a general statement for the whole damn community.
But once again, there's a statement about us being narrow-minded. Solipsism is the most narrow-minded thing of all, where everybody decides what's true for themselves. But to the charge, again, that I've seen several times in the chat, and I've already addressed it several times, one more time, is that when something we are all entitled to our convictions, and there's nothing wrong with saying what you believe to be true. Why should we try to accept things we don't believe are true? That would be dishonest to ourselves. Plus the fact that other people don't cut us any slack. They want us to be wrong. And if nothing is true, then nothing is true, and nobody can say anything's false. I mean, they can't say it's true or false. And so I would just like one day where people cut us as much slack as they expect us to cut them. And whoever the person in the chat who's saying this, they believe they're right and everybody else is wrong. I don't care what it is they believe. They believe they're right and everybody else is wrong, or they wouldn't believe it. So anyway,
just describe half of YouTube. Okay.
I'm sorry?
Just describe half of YouTube.
Yeah. But it's so often only one-sided against Christianity, as thinking we're the only narrow-minded ones and we're the only ones who think we're right and everyone else is wrong. Everybody does that. Everybody without exception. I don't care if they're atheists or whatever they are. I don't care if they worship candy canes. Everybody does that. But I just hated seeing people I like in the chat fighting with each other and being, judgmental on both sides. I mean, just being nasty, you're lost or whatever. Maybe they are, but it's, the better part of diplomacy and remembering to spread the gospel that we don't, choose our words carefully is all I was asking. But to be fair, though, again, just to bring balance to things all the time, is that I see it go the other way too. People that are on the receiving end, maybe tonight, of some unfair words, those people are also often on the dishing it out end in other venues. And so it all, everybody does the same thing. And so it's just I just hate to see it happen here. So if anybody went away mad, if you know that person, if you can try and catch up with them, like I said, I'm going to try to get to bed and hope that there's no hard feelings. And actually, when there's no such thing as right and wrong, then there can't be hard feelings, right? So anyway, thanks you all for coming.
Virtually.
And yes, and we were just venting. We're allowed to do that too. And I'm hoping that everybody will at least try to look at their own beliefs and put them under scrutiny themselves and be their own worst critics and say, am I consistent even with my own belief system? Do I treat people the way I want to be treated? And stand on your convictions, absolutely, but stand on them in a way that would make somebody want to listen to you is all I'm asking. And yeah, we do get treated unfairly. The people we try to be kind to are not very often kind to us, especially when we're not looking. So it goes.
That's what the book says.
Goes around. Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So again, I got to shut down because it's bedtime, and it was good to talk to you all. We haven't done this in a long time.
Okay, bless you all.
Yes, God bless everybody. Let's.
God bless everybody. Thanks for playing.
All right.